How you doing with Xfinity? We're good. So far,
Yes.
so good. The governor. I want to welcome everybody to the 2022 budget roundtable. We have representatives from all three towns here as well as the majority of the school committee. So everybody will look forward to speak ahead.
Hey, well, thank you everybody for coming tonight. Before we begin, I want to introduce you to Clay Connor, who is going to be the new Director of Finance and Operations, because today is actually Mr. Stephen Presnell's last full day in South County. I want to thank him for his 11 plus years, the beautiful schools, the thorough budgets, everything he's just done for us has really made an impact on our school district. So I just want to thank you for everything and wish you only the best in the next few years.
Thank you. Come back for, when you turn 100.
I'll give you a citation. Did I tell you who my favorite business manager?
When he just forgot about
it. Part-timers. See, I told you, going around. Yeah.
So today what we're going to do is we're going to start with just a little bit of a background because we have some new people and just going over how a school budget is formed. I did this a couple of years ago when I first started about what required net school spending is and how a school budget is developed. Because the school budget does take the greatest portion of the three towns budgets. And so we just wanted to do a little bit of an explanation to explain how we do our budget and what is required and what makes up our budget. So I'm going to start by turning it over to Clay Connor, and he is going to start with explaining Chapter 70.
I get the fun part, so. Okay, so Chapter 70 is the main source of revenue for school districts. It takes Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. They define and calculate a foundation budget for each district. It's based on the grades, the programs, demographics, and characteristics of the students. And then after they determine and calculate the foundation budget, they determine an equitable local contribution requirement. And then they calculate how much aid in Chapter 70 will be available to the school districts. Basically, the local contribution and state aid equal a district's net school spending requirement. And then whatever is added beyond that over the course of a year, sometimes you add in debt service, transportation costs, things like that, that becomes the actual net school spending requirement. So it's the net school spending is the minimum school spending requirement plus the local contribution plus Chapter 70. Right.
And the thing
this is all in your handout.
Yeah, this is all in the handout.
I didn't read it verbatim, but
and the net school spending is the least amount of money that we can spend. And if we don't meet net school spending, then whatever the differential is between what the lesser amount of what we spend and net school spending, they're going to make us spend the following school year. So there's no getting away from net school spending. It's the minimum that we do have. Okay. So there are other costs that make up a town's contribution to the budget. And these are what we call the non-discretionary. And that is the transportation. We're a regional school district, so we do get a portion of a reimbursement from the state, but transportation is non-discretionary, as is our long-term debt. And you'll see that in the budget every year broken up in our capital, which is what you approve to not disapprove, not to disapprove us from borrowing, taking debt on. And then the other one is the MSB project, MSBA, and that is the portion for the school building that we did. So what does this mean? This means that the towns provide the minimal local contribution. We get that is set by the state. We usually get that every single year in January. and it's in the governor's budget. Usually it goes up by the time the final budget is passed in July. But we've never gone back and asked for it because sometimes we have a little bit of a discretionary line item, and it kind of makes up for the differential. And then you also provide us the additional transportation and the debt service. Now, this is what I wanted to share with you because a lot of people have questions about trends that are happening in the budget. So I kind of did a brief like 5-year look back so you can look at it, and I broke it up by towns. And this is, oops, two things. This is what the required local contribution that was paid by each town. The S is clearly Southwick, the T is Tolland, and the G is Granville. So you can see that in FY19, the required local contribution that was set by the state was $8,684,000 for Southwick. You can also see in FY23, it's now $9,633,000. So you can see that required local contribution is going up significantly over time. And it's going to keep going up because of the Student Opportunity Act. This is the other thing that I wanted to show you is the discretionary assessment. So when we present our budget to you, we show you our budget with basically the net school spending, which is the required local contribution, Chapter 70, whatever transportation costs, and whatever the capital debt is. And then when we do our budget, there are sometimes some additional funds that we need in order to balance our budget. That's what we call the discretionary assessment to the budget. So if you look at this in FY19, 138,000 was the discretionary. It's 190 in FY20. 21 and 22, we did not ask for any additional funds. And in FY23, we asked for discretionary of $160,643. And so what else do we do besides asking the towns for money? And I think this is really what I wanted, the message I want to get out to people tonight is how does the school district help offset the budget? So we offset the budget by what we call our excess and deficiency account, by our school choice revolving account. It's not by the district, but we do get a transportation reimbursement because we are a regional school district. It is one of the benefits of being a regional school district is you should be 100% of our transportation, but it's one of the unfunded mandates. So we only get a portion of it. And for the first time this year, we did include rural school aid in our budget as an offset this year. And I think a few years ago, Russ, you asked me about the rural school aid in one of our meetings. And I was like, the first year we got it. It's becoming pretty consistent. There is a rural school delegation right now. And once I get more information, I'm going to share it out because they just did a study that rural schools need to be funded at a greater rate than what we're being funded because of the declining enrollment. And this is something that is going to be going to the legislation and legislators to pass. So that once it comes out and the bill is on the table, we really need to start advocating for that in our 3 communities because it's going to be more money to offset the budget. So we look at our excess and deficiency and what have we done over time. So if you look back at FY18, we used to be between $550,000 and $650,000 in our excess and deficiency to offset the budget, which means it comes from our district's coffers so that it's deducted from what the taxpayers. FY19, you're going to see something when I go to the school choice. That was an odd year. And Steve can explain it better than I can. If you have questions, we'll get to that in a minute. But you're going to see school choice was extremely high that year. But you'll see 650, 550. And over the past few years, you see we went to an FY21 and FY22 when we asked for the 0 discretionary line item. we did increase our excess and deficiency that we didn't ask the taxpayers for more money. We used our coffers. Get to the top of that. This is the school choice revolving. So as you can see, we also use school choice revolving. We use it for a lot of our special education out of district tuitions and for our vocational tuitions. And you'll see FY19, it was significant because we had to offset our low E&D. And in the end, they ended up balancing each other. But you'll see again, over time, we're using more and more of our school choice revolving numbers to keep the budgets low to the 3 towns. And again, this is one of those things that I've really started talking about since I became superintendent back in FY16, 17, is the hold harmless. For people who don't know what hold harmless is, really important to understand. The state tells us how much we are supposed to get in Chapter 78. But they also say, we're not going to give you less than what we gave you at one point in time. So these amounts, the 4,612,000, now the 4,226,000, that is additional money that the state is giving us above what we should be getting in our Chapter 78 from the state. It's really important to know, because eventually over time, you see our hold harmless is shrinking because the required local contributions are going up. So eventually, over time, the state wants to see it start going like this. So if you hear that we're going to get all this extra money in the Student Opportunity Act, or there's all this money coming from the state, we don't see any of that money except for the $30 or the $60 per student because of this hold harmless. Because they're giving us so much extra money that even if what we should have been getting would have gone up, we're seeing it in the hold harmless. So the only money we really get to offset our budget every year is the $30 or $60 per student from the Chapter 78, which we do get, and the required local contributions. So our concerns for FY24. As you all know, we have a new governor. And with the new governor, we usually get our cherry sheets at the end of January, which gives us an idea of what the required local contributions are going to be. And we build our budget from that. That's our starting place for building our budget. Because there's a new governor, she gets until March of 2023 to send out what her new her budget proposal is going to be. So what does that mean for us? It means that Clay and I are going to be sitting in on a webinar on December 6th, as they quote unquote say, the most important webinar we're going to sit on probably in our entire lives. And they're going to take us through the process of going through our SIMS data, which is our foundation enrollment that we submit on October 1st every year. And we look at the number of kids who are ELL. We look at our kids who go to the vocational schools. We look at the number of kids who are special education. We look at all these different factors. And they're going to walk us through Excel spreadsheet to help us estimate what they believe our required local contributions are going to be. So we are going to do our best to put a budget together. It's going to be interesting. This has never happened to me before, but I'm hoping that this webinar in December is going to be spot on. It is being put on from somebody from DESE, who is in
It's a former DESE person who's now working with the Mass Association of Regional Schools.
So they should help us. Another concern, inflation rates. For the past 2 years, they are predicting that they are capping inflation at 4.5%. We know last year it was actually a 7.5%, and they're predicting a 9.1% for FY24. So if they cap it at 4.5%, that could potentially lead to cuts, larger class sizes, or less services. And again, I don't know until we get the numbers from the state and where our required local contributions are going to be. Another thing I want to share is the OSD. So the OSD is our, I don't know the specific term for it, but what it is our special ed, our students who go to out of district special ed programs. They usually do an inflation rate of between 1% and 2% over the past 20 years. This year, they're doing an inflation rate of 14%, which right off the bat increases our budget by $126,000 in fixed cost increases. And that's without anything else happening to our budget, just the inflation rate for our students who are out of district for special education.
OSD is the state agency that sets the tuition rates for out of district schools, to special education schools that are outside of the district.
And then remember, we're in hold harmless, so we're not going to be expecting any additional state funds except for the $35 or the $60 per student that we get. So how do we fare? I put this together to show you that if you look at actual net school spending, that's the blue. That is where we as a school district are operating. And you can see the orange is the required net school spending. So you can see that we bring forward every year a really tight budget to you that is just meeting required net school spending, which is the minimum of what we can spend every year. Because if we don't meet it, the state will tell us, and the difference we'll have to make up the previous year. What I have for you tonight. I know, always good news, Russ, right?
I was going to clap, but then
you can clap.
I think I'm not going to cry, Rob.
I know. But my point tonight was just, I know there was lots of questions about the budget because I know it is the greatest portion, but the message that I'm just trying, I'd like to just get out is that we are, as a school district, really being fiscally responsible. We are just meeting net school spending every year, and we are using more and more of our revolving accounts, our E&D and our school choice to help offset the budget as well. So I just want to let you know that's where we are. We constantly try to offer the best services for our kids, but also look at every school, every class, every grade. We don't bring a budget that is just what last year's budget was. We look at class rosters, we look at grade level sizes, and we do make changes. So it's a pretty intense process. It's a lot of work, but we really feel it's our responsibility to our kids in our district to really give them the best education possible, because that's what we're here for.
Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
Questions?
Anything?
That was
Yes.
going to be my.
Yeah.
All right. Open it up.
Well, I've asked this question before,
Mhm.
so I'll ask it again. The transportation, unfunded mandate.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever approached the auditor and filed paperwork with the auditor?
I think so. I don't recall where she came out on that. They've gotten better in recent years,
Right.
so we've been upward, in the 80% range for reimbursement, maybe even approaching 90 in 1 or 2 years in the last 4 or 5. When I got here, they were down around 50 or 60%. It's pretty atrocious, but the legislature's gotten better, but they're still not quite.
And the reason why I ask it, inflation.
Oh, yeah.
The cost of
Yep.
the diesel operating. It's going to be a big increase.
I did ask the LPVEC, I was there last week, and I asked them what they anticipated. We're going to see a huge increase in our transportation costs this year. They didn't think so, One of the things that they're doing, and I didn't even know that they could, they're moving away from diesel buses and they're buying gas fuel buses. And they also just got $1 million grant from the state.
10 electric buses.
And like 20, it was like 25 buses?
25.
25 buses.
Yeah.
And it comes with $20,000 for charging stations for them. Some of them are going to be a quick charge, so you can charge the bus during lunch. Some would be an overnight charge, but that is 25 buses that the LPVAC just got that from a grant from the state. So that's good news. That is good news.
And they're one of the first, this is the first group that's getting these grants from the state. So whoever called the right person, we got in the first group of distributions for this. So that's nice.
That's really good.
Under the OSD, we're talking about
Yes.
14% inflation and about 126,000 increase. Are there any programs that we could feasibly now afford to do in that of shipment?
Yeah, you can probably.
So over the past 3 years, we have created some in-district programs. We created a social emotional program at Woodland. This is the first year of the social emotional program at Woodland. And we also created a classroom for children with autism. That both of those programs are now in district. And now here at Woodland, it's our first year with a socially emotional classroom as well. So we have created 3 in-district programs to keep kids here.
Thank you.
That's a great question.
They always.
Thank you. Did I tell you it's an election year? Well, as far as Southwick is concerned, you know, our energy, we're talking about 50% increase even this fiscal period. You know, we're still developing our paramedic level, expanding that. You know, we got to keep increasing salaries because we keep getting poached. But it's the same with every other community. Mr. Moglen is working on fiber optics, but that'll be addressed at our next May town meeting. So that could be a cost to our community, but it would be a tremendous benefit to the community and to the school.
Yes, it would.
And as we're talking about that, we are informal discussions with Eversource. I think you know that about them expanding their solar array, and they would possibly work with the schools to have emergency backup of power in case we needed to shelter people. So that's going on. Mr. Mogul, am I missing any other major things?
Yes, just one. That Mr. Presnell is able to keep his lanyard and it's a retired badge.
Wait a minute.
It's very important.
Southwick wants its 86%, right? Sorry, Steve.
So you can keep it. It may not work, but you.
That's he's very. I've never been to a meeting where he hasn't had it on.
I was trying to set the tone.
And I don't know about Granville and Tallinn, what you guys got going.
We've got a couple things coming up this year, but you're gonna think it's small compared to a larger town. We've got this year, we're trying to, right now, our police department and fire department has a hard time talking to one another on their radios, believe it or not. So we'd like to, we've got a study going on right now to add some antennas on existing towers in town. And that's actually going to tie together with Granville very well. And it's going to actually improve both our towns for emergency services, as well as DPW and anybody else who can. So that's going to be a big hit for us this year. But we've started a capital plan, and we've been trying to stay to it, and that's helped. We, you know, when instead of going like this, we're kind of like this every year. You know, so far so good. So this year isn't a bad year. I've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
And it's more on back what a few minutes ago. Population of students. Has that gone up? Has that stayed the same? Has that gone down?
It's gone down. It's gone down
By
about
a
20
percentage.
kids this year from
Okay.
last year.
All right. And last year,
Was
it-
significant. Yeah.
so that seems to be the trend, is dropping every year here. You see that going on?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
That's one of the reasons that they're
Yeah.
doing this rural school delegation. It was a big movement. It started in Mohawk Trail Regional School District by the superintendent there. He's no longer there. He was the one who just even started that minimum rural aid that we were getting.
Yeah.
But then they paid somebody to come and do like a huge study, and they sent all their recommendations to the state. And there's significant money that they're saying that rural schools really need, because we do have declining enrollments, yet our fixed cost increases are going up every year. So there's got to be a give at some point. And it's becoming more and more evident that rural schools need support. It's not just the big urban districts, it's the rural schools who are having impacts on their budgets as well right now.
Second question, how are our students doing at this level of funding? Like you were just saying that, you know, you basically kept the level of funding going. How are the students doing with that minimum contribution and all that? Are you noticing any difference, or are they all doing scholastically? How are they doing with that?
Another great question. Because we're hold harmless,
Okay.
we're able to maintain a level of service.
Okay.
And we have ESSER funds that we've been able to use to offset some teaching positions the past few years. During COVID, we talked about the acceleration roadmap that we use. I'm not going to get into all the education-ese at a budget roundtable meeting, but what we are doing is we are testing our students at the beginning of the year and looking at where their deficits are. And right before we're about to teach that at that grade level, the students go to one of our interventionists and like secure up their background information so that when they're about to learn it at grade level, their gap has been filled. That's how we're using our interventionists and our ESSER money. That does go away. They're in the budget for one more year. But after that year, the interventionists are gone.
Okay. So that's going to be a heavy hit. Heavy hit.
It's going to be decision making.
Yeah. Oh, we are internet savvy now. We've got high-speed internet in town. Finally,
We've actually jumped ahead of you.
Oh, so you got rid of the tin can and
Yeah, but now we got all the new stuff.
Packets for you. I'll email now, but.
That's age.
Oh,
I got
see,
age
now you're switching.
and we're almost all connected in town.
That's great.
Real close.
That's fantastic.
Infinity has been crawling across the whole town. I don't know how to use it, but
You could if you wanted to.
To answer Russ's question about how we're doing financially, we won't know until budget season, as you know.
I think
Until we get these numbers from the state, we kind of just play it by ear and hope for the best.
My Granville peeps back there. You want to
Yeah,
pipe in?
basically it's the same for us too. You know, we haven't even started, haven't, met with the departments yet, so have no idea, what they're looking for this year.
Yeah.
So.
We have a moving highway garage issue.
Yeah.
I do have one, not so much a question, but it's more of a fact finding. When you have your webinar in December, what happened with the state budget? I mean, election, they had this, 4% increase tax rate on the $1 million earners. So, and they're promising that for schools and transportation. So I would say it's very find out where they anticipate this going.
That's a great point. I will bring that up at the webinar. Yeah, that's great.
Art, do you know the effective date of that, when that tax rolls in? Is it, any of the details?
I don't either.
22.
Now, of course, you got to start accumulating. Well,
I thought it was 22.
You want to get your foot in the door early to find out that, yes, if it's going to be there, how is it going to be supposed to be?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Could also be a shell game. So they may not be anything.
Yeah.
Right. Because they only named they named at least 3 or 4 things that money could be used for. So-
I just saw 2, but it's like anything you can rob Peter if they fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take it somewhere else if you
Yeah.
want to get see that.
I can report that the existing education funding reform bill, the Student Opportunity Act or SOA, it's not really funded. So the millionaire tax that could be coming in, that could be
Offset.
a way to fund already existing increased spending requirements that are coming down the pipe.
That Prop 1 was supposed to take effect January 1.
January 1.
So it'd be for calendar year 23.
Okay.
And I will ask when we're doing it, if that's being used at all in these calculations.
What's the over under you're gonna get laughed at?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, don't bring it up. And say, yeah,
No.
problem, we got-
Nobody
Yeah.
asked a question, so they obviously weren't worried about it. Any other questions, concerns, items? Well. Got anything else we need to do?
No.
We're gonna
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
thank you everybody for the time. Have a fantastic Thanksgiving. Get ready for Christmas. It's under close.